You don't live 75 years without learning a few things the hard way. Some lessons come gently, like the morning sun rising after a long night. Others hit you like a freight train, leaving you dazed and wondering why you didn't see it coming. If I could go back and have a word with my younger self, there's a lot I'd tell him. But since I can't, I'll tell you instead. It took me a lifetime to piece these things together. But you're getting them in the next 20 minutes. That's a shortcut not many people get. See, when you're young, you think time is on your side. You believe you'll figure things out. Eventually, that mistakes will correct themselves, and that there's always another chance waiting around the corner. That's half true. But what nobody tells you is how many of those mistakes will cost you things you can't get back. Relationships, opportunities, health, peace of mind. The small things you brush off in your 20s can become the weight you carry in your 50s. I learned this by living through it, not by reading a book or hearing a speech. Life taught me in its own way, and trust me, life is a relentless teacher. It never stops giving you the test first, and the lesson later. One of the hardest lessons to accept is that you don't get to redo time, only redirect it. When you're young, you waste time like you have an endless supply. You let people steal it. You give it away to meaningless things. You trade it for things that don't add to your life. And by the time you realize how precious it is, you've already left too much of it behind. If I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be this. Pay attention to where your time is going. It's funny how we chase things that don't matter in the long run. I spent years worrying about things that, in hindsight, were just noise. What people thought of me, how I measured up, whether I was successful enough, respected enough, doing things the right way. But now, looking back, I see how little of it actually mattered. What mattered were the quiet moments, the ones I didn't think twice about at the time. Sitting on the porch with my dad before he passed, holding my child's tiny hand as they took their first steps, laughing until my stomach hurt with an old friend. Those moments, they were the real wealth. And if you're not careful, you'll let them slip through your fingers while chasing something that won't even matter in 5 years. Let me tell you something else that took me too long to learn. Not every battle is worth fighting. When you're younger, you think you have to prove yourself. You think you have to correct every misunderstanding, set the record straight, make sure people see you a certain way. But as you get older, you realize that some battles are just a waste of energy. You learn to pick your fights, and more importantly, you learn that silence is often the strongest answer. When someone wants to misunderstand you, they will. No amount of explaining will change that. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is walk away. People often ask me what I regret the most. You know what it is? It's not the things I failed at. It's the things I was too afraid to try. Fear kept me from taking chances that could have changed my life. It made me hesitate when I should have jumped. If I had a chance to go back, I wouldn't waste so much time second-guessing myself. Because at the end of the day, failure isn't the worst thing that can happen. Regret is. But let me tell you a little secret about life. Most things don't matter as much as you think they do. The things that keep you up at night, the worries that weigh heavy on your chest, the embarrassment, the disappointments, they fade. Time smooths out the rough edges. What feels like the end of the world today will barely be a memory in a few years. So don't let temporary things make permanent marks on your life. Learn to step back and ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, let it go. You might think you have to do everything right, make all the right choices, avoid every mistake. But the truth is, life isn't about getting it all right. It's about getting back up when you get it wrong. I used to think strength was about never falling. Now I know it's about standing back up every time you do. And while we're at it, let me tell you something about people. They come and go. No matter how much you love someone, no matter how much you want them to stay, some people are only meant to walk with you for part of the journey. And that's okay. Trying to hold on to people who no longer fit your life is like holding on to a rope that's burning your hands. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let go. But here's the most important part. The people who matter, the ones who truly love you, they're worth every effort. If you find people who make you better, who stand by you, who see you for who you are, and still choose to stay, don't take them for granted. Time has a way of slipping past us, and one day you'll look up and realize that the people you thought would always be there are gone. Tell them you love them while you can. Show up for them while you still have the chance. You might think you have more time. We all do. But if there's one thing I've learned in 75 years, it's that time is the one thing you never truly own. You can't buy more of it. You can't earn it back once it's gone. So don't waste it on things that don't feed your soul. That's enough for now. But don't go anywhere. There's more I need to tell you. Here's something I wish someone had told me when I was younger. Happiness is simpler than you think, but people make it complicated. We spend our lives chasing happiness like it's some prize we'll eventually earn. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I get the right job, when I have enough money, when I find the right person, when I achieve this or that. And before you know it, years go by and happiness is always sitting just a little out of reach, like the horizon that moves every time you take a step forward. But I'll tell you the truth about happiness. It's not something you achieve. It's something you allow. It's in the little things, the quiet moments, the space between all the chasing. It's in the mornings when you wake up and stretch your arms, in the laughter that escapes you when you're not thinking too hard. It's in the breeze that hits your face when you step outside, in the song that makes you hum along without realizing. It's in knowing that at the end of the day, you have people who care about you and a roof over your head. The biggest mistake people make is thinking happiness comes from getting more money, more success, more approval. But let me tell you, I've known rich men who were miserable and poor men who laughed every day. The difference wasn't what they had. It was how they saw what they had. Some people will always feel like they're lacking, no matter how much they have. Others will feel full with just the basics. The trick? Learn to appreciate the simple things before life forces you to. Because one day, you'll look back and realize the small things were the big things all along. And speaking of things we don't realize until it's too late, let's talk about health. When you're young, you take your body for granted. You eat whatever you want, stay up too late, push through exhaustion, ignore the warning signs, and it feels like nothing can touch you, like you'll be strong forever. Then one day you wake up and things don't heal the way they used to. Your back aches for no reason. Your knees creak when you stand up. And suddenly, you realize your body isn't invincible. It never was. If I could go back, I'd take better care of myself. Not for the sake of looking good, but for the sake of feeling good. Because when your body starts breaking down, you realize how much of your happiness is tied to simply being able to move without pain, to sleep peacefully, to wake up with energy. If you're young and reading this, start now. Eat better, move more, rest enough. Treat your body with respect, because once it starts giving up on you, there's no reversing the damage. Another thing time has taught me is that peace is more valuable than being right. I used to waste so much time arguing, trying to prove a point. making sure people saw things my way. I thought winning an argument meant something. But now, I realize most arguments aren't worth it. You don't have to attend every fight you're invited to. Let people be wrong if they want to be. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. At the end of the day, your peace is worth more than their approval. And while we're on the subject of peace, learn to enjoy your own company. I see too many people afraid of being alone, always needing noise, distraction, someone to fill the silence. But if you can't enjoy your own company, you'll always be running from yourself. And trust me, there will come a time in your life when you'll have to sit with yourself, whether you like it or not. So make sure you're someone you enjoy being with. Let's talk about something people don't like to admit. The people in your life will change. Friends you thought would be there forever will drift away. Family members you relied on will disappoint you. People you once loved will become strangers. And it's not always because something went wrong. Sometimes people simply outgrow each other. Sometimes life pulls you in different directions. It took me a long time to understand that not every goodbye is a bad thing. Some people are only meant to walk with you for a little while. And that's okay. But here's the thing. Don't take the ones who stay for granted. The real ones, the ones who stick by you through the hard times, who celebrate your wins without envy, who show up when you need them. They are rare. And in the end, they matter more than anything else. If you have even a handful of people like that in your life, cherish them. Show up for them, because nothing lasts forever. And one day, they'll be gone too. Now let me tell you something that might take years for you to fully understand. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to be thinking about you. I spent too many years worrying about what people thought of me, afraid of judgment, holding myself back because I didn't want to be criticized. But do you know what I learned? Most people are too caught up in their own worries, their own insecurities, their own lives, to be paying as much attention to you as you think. So stop holding yourself back. Stop waiting for permission to live your life the way you want to. Because at the end of the day, you are the only one who has to live with your choices. And that brings me to the most important thing I've learned. Life is shorter than you think. You think you have time, but you don't. One day, you'll wake up and realize most of your life is behind you. And you'll either feel peace, knowing you lived it fully, or you'll feel regret, knowing you let fear, doubt, and hesitation steal your time. So here's my advice. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for everything to line up just right. Stop waiting for a sign. Just do it. Start. Take the trip. Tell them you love them. Chase the dream. Live the life you want while you still can. Because when you're my age, the only thing you'll wish for is more time. And by then, it'll be too late. Let me tell you something that might not make sense to you right now, but one day it will. The older you get, the more you realize that life isn't about what you have. It's about what you leave behind. You spend so much of your younger years trying to build something. Money, status, success. You think if you work hard enough, if you sacrifice enough, you'll finally reach a place where you can say, I made it. But here's the truth. There is no finish line. You keep moving the goalposts. The moment you achieve one thing, you start chasing another. And before you know it, you've spent decades running after something that never truly satisfies you. I've seen people who had everything. A big house, a bank account full of money, a life that looked perfect from the outside. But when you sit with them in their final days, they don't talk about their business deals. They don't talk about how much money they made. They don't even talk about their achievements. They talk about love. They talk about the moments They wish they could relive. They talk about the people they wish they had spent more time with, because at the end of the road, that's all that matters. The people, the love, the memories. I wish I had understood that sooner. I wish I had spent less time chasing things and more time being present. I wish I had called my parents more when they were alive. I wish I had told my friends how much they meant to me. I wish I had taken more slow walks, listened more, laughed more. But the thing about life is that you don't get do-overs. You only get lessons, and this is one I had to learn the hard way. So, listen to me when I say this. Your legacy isn't what you leave in the bank. It's what you leave in the hearts of the people who knew you. Now let's talk about something else that most people don't figure out until it's too late. Forgiveness. I used to think forgiveness was about the other person, about letting them off the hook, about pretending like what they did didn't hurt me. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself. You don't forgive people because they deserve it. You forgive them because you deserve peace. Carrying anger, resentment, bitterness. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It only eats away at you. I've seen people carry grudges for years, letting them fester, letting them define their whole life. And in the end, all that bitterness didn't change a damn thing. It just stole their joy. Forgive. Not because they asked for it, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. And while we're on the subject of freedom, let me tell you something else. Learn to walk away from anything that costs you your peace. I used to think loyalty meant staying, even when I was miserable. Staying in friendships that drained me. Staying in jobs that wore me down. Staying in situations that no longer served me. But now I know that not everything is meant to be held onto. Some things, some people, some situations, they're just stepping stones. They're lessons. They're temporary. And the biggest mistake you can make is staying somewhere just because you're afraid to leave. Walk away from anything that makes you feel small. Walk away from anything that makes you doubt your worth. Walk away from anything that forces you to fight for love, for respect, for basic kindness. Life is too short to spend it in places that don't feed your soul. I know that sounds easier said than done. And I know some people will say, but what if I don't have another option? You always have an option. It might not be an easy one. It might not be immediate. But you always have the power to change your life. And if you don't believe me now, you will one day. Let's talk about something else that took me too many years to understand. Your mind is your most powerful tool, but also your biggest enemy. The way you think shapes your entire life. If you believe you're stuck, you will be. If you believe you're unworthy, you will act like you are. If you believe the world is against you, you'll see proof of it everywhere. But the moment you start shifting your thoughts, everything else shifts with it. I wish I had known how powerful my own mind was when I was younger. I spent too many years feeding my fears instead of my potential. I spent too many years doubting myself when I should have been building myself up. So let me tell you this. Be careful what you tell yourself. Your words become your reality. And that brings me to another truth. No one is coming to save you. When you're young, you think someone will come along and fix things for you. You wait for a lucky break, for someone to see your worth, for something to change. But let me save you the trouble. The only person who can change your life is you. No one is going to hand you happiness. No one is going to give you self-worth. No one is going to come knocking on your door with the perfect opportunity. You have to go out and create it. You have to fight for it. You have to decide that you deserve more, and then go after it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, It does. And while we're talking about what really matters, let me tell you this. Kindness is underrated. People chase power, success, recognition. But at the end of your life, no one will remember your job title. No one will care how many followers you had, how much money you made, how impressive your resume was. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember the moments you showed up for them, the times you were kind when you didn't have to be. And if you want to leave something behind, let it be kindness. Because at the end of it all, that's what truly lasts. Let me ask you something. If you knew you only had 1 year left to live, how different would your life look? Would you spend less time worrying about what people think? Would you forgive a little easier? Would you stop waiting for the right time to finally start living? The truth is, you don't know how much time you have. None of us do. And that's why most people waste it. Because they think they have more of it. But take it from someone who has lived long enough to see the truth. Life is always shorter than you think. One day, you'll wake up and realize that most of your life is behind you. And when that moment comes, I hope you don't look back with regret. I hope you don't wish you had laughed more, loved more, lived more. Because if you do, there won't be anything you can do about it. That's why I'm telling you now. Stop putting your life on hold. And while we're on the subject of what really matters, let me tell you one last thing. Love is the only thing that truly lasts. Not money, not success, not achievements, not possessions. Love. The way you loved people, the way they loved you. That's what stays. That's what echoes through time. At the end of your life, when everything else fades, love is the only thing that remains. So, love deeply, love openly, love without conditions. Tell people how much they mean to you. Hold them a little longer. Appreciate them while you still have the chance. Because one day, you won't. I've lived long enough to see people chase all the wrong things. I've watched them build their lives around money, power, and pride, only to end up alone, with no one to share it with. Don't make that mistake, because in the end, it won't matter how much money you made. It won't matter how many people admired you. It won't matter if you had the biggest house or the best reputation. What will matter is the love you gave, the kindness you showed, the lives you touched. That's the real measure of a life well lived. So take this wisdom and do something with it. Live now. Love now. Be here now. Because one day, sooner than you think, all of this will just be memories. And when that day comes, I hope you can look back and say, I truly lived.